for two. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this. Multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys? Welcome to episode 374 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I am your host, of course, Geoff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at GeoffLambert77. Of course, we're live every Wednesday night on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and syndicated in all major podcast networks. And you can also find all of our stuff over at goingfor2.live. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. What's up, Ryan? You're on mute, Ryan. We're off to a good start.
Awesome, super professional tonight. Everything's good, man. Excited.
Good stuff. Still got the yellow glow in the background.
Yeah, dude. I like yellow lights. It's real yellow. I don't know why it's that bright.
Yeah, it just suddenly went even more yellow when you turned around for some reason.
He's like Superman. Like he's under a yellow sun. That's what gives him the superpowers.
Yeah, there you go.
It's bad, huh?
It's all good. You be a little jaundiced tonight. Whoa.
And there's a doctor here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we got a doctor in the house.
Function after the show.
All right, and that voice you hear, of course, is none other than Mr. Jim Ferretti, a.k.a. The Doc. He's an injury analyst for Going for Two. He's also an injury analyst at Baseball HQ, and he's the author of Injuries Suck, But Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to. And you can follow him on Twitter at TFSDoc. What up, Doc?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to be back on the Armchair Show. Always a good time. And Ryan, you're looking a lot better now. That's a much better background than before. So anybody that's not watching on YouTube, you're just listening, you got to come over to the YouTube stream and check it out. It's definitely worth the price of admission.
And hit subscribe. Yeah. And my face is green, but that's just
yeah. I think now there's no reference point, right? Now you look like you're just green. Like before, the light kind of gave the reference point, like, oh, that's why he's green. But now you look like you're sick.
I'm green, and somebody didn't diagnose me before the show, so we're questioning.
We're just happy your internet's working so far. I don't want to jinx it though.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
I snapped on draft night. I snapped. It broke me, and I bought a new computer 2 days later.
Yeah, he's new computer.
Only took you 9 months, but better late than never.
I'm poor, man. Let me be. We're in a recession. I know what you're talking about, man.
Oh, whatever you did, just fixed it because you're no longer yellow. I don't know.
There you go.
You are good to go now.
I'm not
all right.
Sick.
Little off the rails already. We've been on the show now for 3 minutes. As always, y'all, the show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check out their best ball leagues, huge tournaments, private leagues, pick'ems for all major sports. Use our promo code GF2 and get bonus bucks up to $250. They changed it. It used to be a deposit match up to $100. Now you get bonus bucks up to $250. It's as simple as that. Go get the app. Use our promo code GF2. I'm currently drafting, I think, 3 best ball leagues. Of course, Dan, the B League, he's our best ball guru. He's probably drafting 6 or 7 of them right now. But if you haven't done best ball before, it's definitely worth a shot or definitely worth trying it out. It's also good for your redraft leagues. Kind of gives you an idea of where players are being drafted and it gets you ready for your redraft league. So if you do a ton of mock drafts, you might as well go get paid for it, right? A potential to get paid for it if you win, the best ball league. So that's kind of how I look at it, is like a mock draft that I can win some money on.
100%.
All right, we got a great show tonight. We'll do news and notes. We got a couple news and notes to talk about. Then we're going to do some dynasty strategy tips, sort of an overarching kind of the five things that the 3 of us kind of do in our dynasty leagues. And stick around because it's not going to be all cookie cutter, because the Doc is a little bit different than some of our dynasty people. He has some different perspectives on things, so make sure you stick around for that. do some listener questions, of course, the forgotten fantasy player. But as always, we'll kick it off with our nonsense draft.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right. I kind of came up with this one on a whim. Was having Doc on, and I know Doc's a big movie guy. So tonight we are drafting best movie quotes to live your life by. And as always, the guest gets to go first. So Doc, you get the 101 here.
All right, I like this one. I had some fun with this one. So we'll start it off with something that I think is really pertinent, not just to life, but also kind of the way that I play Dynasty too. And you guys will find out about that soon enough. But Robin Williams from Dead Poets Society, Carpe diem, boys. Seize the day, make your lives and your teams extraordinary.
Nice. That was a good one. Yeah, that was on my list as well. I pulled up a bunch of movie quotes and was trying to figure out how to incorporate some of them into like fantasy as well. And that was one of the ones that popped up on there. So yeah, good pull for the 101. All right. 102. I'm going to stick with a similar theme. Thinking about fantasy football. I know we do these not related to fantasy football, but this one can kind of go with a lot of things. But of course, it is if you ain't first, you're last. From Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights. I've used that quote quite a bit, but yeah, that was definitely one that I live by in just my regular life, but then of course in fantasy football too. If you're not winning the championship, then you might as well just be last. So that's my 102. Ryan, you got the 103.
I was gonna go with another Ricky Bobby quote, but I'm not. We'll keep it normal for a little bit. We're gonna quote the great Yoda: "Do or do not. There is no try."
Great choice. Yeah, that was on my list as well.
Of course,
Ryan is trying to snipe me there because he knows I'm a big Star Wars fan, so he's trying to get his Star Wars quotes in quick.
I heard the new ones are your favorites, but that's just me.
No, my daughter's favorites, but they're not my favorites. No, I prefer the originals. All right, Doc, back to you with the 201.
All right, so I was thinking to pull a Star Wars quote because I was wondering if you were going to go with one. I was going to try to snipe you too. That was on my list, but I guess we'll go with another one. We'll go with one from the movie Scarface. There's a lot of lessons from the movie Scarface. I don't know how much of them are applicable to everyday life, but Tony Montana's quote I think works, and he said, "All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one." Do you understand?
I love it, even with the accent. I'm not going to be pulling any accents tonight. We'll let Doc do those, but that's a great one. Good stuff. All right, I'm up at the 202, and anybody that knows me in my real life, this is kind of how I live my life. I don't let a lot of things get to me. I don't let things bother me. I just let it roll off my back, and then doing the job that I do at Lowe's as a manager with some of the customers that we get, I got to kind of have this quote in my head at all times. It is from the movie Friday, and it's just, "Bye, Felicia," because that's exactly how I feel about some customers sometimes when I'm like, all right, bye, Felicia. You came in, you screamed at me and whatever else, but you know what? Let it roll off my back and move on. So that's what my 202 is.
People at Lowe's are angry, huh? What are people at Lowe's so angry about?
Man, it's unbelievable what things they get mad about. You wouldn't believe.
Oh, dude, customer service is the worst.
It is. It 100%.
People are terrible.
All right, Ryan, you got the 203.
Mine is from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and it's, "When life gives you lemons, fuck it, dude, just fail."
Yeah, that's a great one. That one's awesome. I love it.
Oh man, that's a good one.
All right, Doc, you got the 301.
All right, we're gonna finish it out with an oldie but a goldie. So some of the audience might not even been born when this movie came out, but it's Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox, Coach Finstock. It's a little long, but bear with me. "There are 3 rules that I live by. Never get less than 12 hours sleep, never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as a city, and never go near a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body. Now you stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese."
That's a great quote, and that's a great pull too, because 80s movies, it's not a quotable movie, but I like it. All right, let's see. I'm up at the 302. My last pick. I'm just going to go with a pick from probably my favorite movie, and it's not a Star Wars movie. Growing up, I know Doc remembers this. It was on VHS, and it was the VHS that had 2 tapes because it was so long that it couldn't fit onto one VHS. so you had to like stop it when you were done and put the other VH in and finish watching it. And that movie is Braveheart, and the quote is, "Every man dies, but not every man really lives." It's a great quote to live by, when you think about things in your life, and he's right. Everyone dies, but to truly live and enjoy life, to do things as you go through life. So yeah, that's kind of a great quote to live by. All right, Ryan, closes out at the 303 here.
Yeah, sorry, dogs are barking. So we're going a little off the rails here. We're going from Blue Mountain State. Coach Marty Daniels, where he said, "Once upon a time, some weak, pathetic something or other coined the phrase 'winning isn't everything,' but for most, but."
Oh, I think we lost Ryan right in the middle of it.
We were so close to that FAFSA award, and then Ryan bombed out on us.
I don't know why, because it says his internet connection is still good. I think his computer may have just. Oh, there he is. You're back, Ryan.
Did I need to say it or no?
Say it again because you got cut off.
Half of it.
Once upon a time, some weak, pathetic pussy coined the phrase "winning isn't everything," but for most situations, he was right. But I'm not one of those people, and this is not one of those situations.
Nice.
All right.
Good stuff. All right, let's get into some football stuff.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, not a ton of stuff to talk about. I did want to mention a couple things here. The first one, Ryan, Jared Goff signs a 4-year, $212 million extension. No one kind of saw this coming when he first went to the Lions. We were drafting the backup quarterback thinking that he would take over for Goff eventually. But Goff has been playing really, really well. But just in general, what does this do for longevity of that Lions offense? Goff is known as kind of a check down guy, but he's made some pretty expensive pieces in Dynasty do well over time. Ryan?
I mean, everybody's done. Yeah, I said that offense ran fantastic. It was one of the best offenses in football last year. And he fits it perfectly. It's wheels up. Only person I don't know what it does is with Jameson Williams, but there's also other things with him that we're more worried about than Jared Goff getting the ball. But I mean, for Amon-Ra St. Brown, for Jahmyr Gibbs, it's money, man. Like, I love him going there. Consistency's great. And the coach trusts him. He fits the situation. I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Doc, where do you think the hate for Jared Goff comes from? I mean, when he was with the Rams, he kind of did the same thing there, where he made some pretty, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Todd Gurley. They were all super fantasy relevant, but he went to the Lions. We didn't seem to trust it. Like I said, people were drafting the backup quarterback, thinking that he might eventually be the starter, and Goff's done nothing but kill it since he's been there.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson as far as, people, especially when we play Dynasty. It's like we always talk about, like, I hear it so much. People are like, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, like, this guy's going to be good. And it's like those pieces were accumulating when he went to Detroit, and just nobody wanted to give him any credit for it. They got Coach Campbell in there. They started, making the draft moves, and they started kind of turning the franchise around. And it was just kind of assumed that he was just going to be garbage. And when you think about it, like, he's a good quarterback. He's not an elite talent by, measurables or anything like that, but he utilizes all the pieces that he has, which are very good offensive pieces, and it all just works. And if Hamid Sandhu is out there, I hope he's watching, because we got into an epic argument about this on the first season of the Dynasty Gambit. I got to pull the tapes on that and just send it to him. I think he's like running. He's a business mogul now. He's vice president of Amazon with Jeff Bezos. But if you ever find time out there, Hamid, to revisit the little people that you knew on the way up, think back to that argument about it. You were ready to sell Jared Goff short, because you didn't want to wait a year and a half. I mean, this is Dynasty, right? So now anybody that had the patience and had the wherewithal to kind of just stick with a veteran quarterback and just kind of let the soup marinate, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's honestly a good lesson for fantasy football, and I feel like we should get. I'm going to go back to it when we get to the dynasty strategy section. I was going to use that point now, but we'll come back to it.
Okay, fair enough. We'll stick here with the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs expected to get more touches in 2024. Doc, this is kind of off-season speak, and Jahmyr Gibbs got a ton of touches last year, but he's still in the offense with, some of the pieces that we just mentioned, along with David Montgomery in the backfield. Do you really think that Jahmyr Gibbs could be even better than he was last year, or is this just off-season talk?
Oh, I think he can absolutely be better. But either way, I don't care. Like, he's so explosive, like whether he gets more touches or not, like, I think, sky's the limit. Like if he gets more touches next year and he's even more productive, that's just icing on the cake. But he was excellent in a split backfield last year. I mean, granted, David Montgomery missed a few games here and there, but that offense, it really cooks on all cylinders. So any pieces of that offense I'm interested in, and he's one of the best ones. So if he ends up getting more touches and is more productive, then all the better.
Yeah, agreed. Ryan, I'll give you this last one here. Treylon Burks, obviously was highly touted prospect coming out, hasn't done a whole lot in his first couple of years in the NFL, and now is kind of buried on the depth chart. But they said he still has a role in a crowded receiver room. Do you think there's any chance that Treylon Burks ever has that breakout that we had hoped that he'd have when we first came into the league?
Man, I'm sure he has a role. I'm sure they all do, but this isn't looking like a high-powered offense, and we're talking second or third piece down the line. I'm not really buying it. If you want to do like a best ball dart throw later on because everybody forgot about it, I'm fine with that. And there's always that chance, but it's not a bet I'm planning on making or trying to pay up for because he's buried a bad offense. You have a QB who, while he showed flashes, he did it in just one game and it kind of disappeared, but we were all hyped on that. There's a lot of inconsistency in Tennessee. I'm just kind of steering clear.
Is there a buy low window for him right now, you think, or is he not even worth going after?
I mean, you can take. I mean, he's not the eight. He's not what you're looking for in the trade. But if somebody throws him in for me, I'm not going to complain.
Fair enough. As like a throw in, yeah, not the main guy you're going to go after, but if you can get him as a cheap throw in just to make a trade deal work, yeah.
If you're going after him, you're going to overpay, and I don't care how little you pay.
Yeah, agreed. Doc, any thoughts on Treylon Burks?
Yeah, I think it's just another guy that you have to exercise kind of excruciating patience with. But, I think if he is going to break out, I think at least some of the pieces are in place where it could happen this year. So I'm still hopeful. I wouldn't give up on him just yet. He's too young and he was, too talented of a player. I don't like to give up on these guys so early. So, it's like if he ends up not being anything, then so be it. But I think the acquisition cost is probably the lowest it's ever been. So it's somebody that it's not going to cost you much to find out, and the upside is relatively high compared to what it's going to cost you to get him.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
I think my hate's more I didn't like him coming out compared to
the receivers that were there.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly fair. But it's like if you think about it, like stocks and appreciating and depreciating assets and things like that, like it could be high reward and relatively low risk.
All right, let's get to some draft strategy. And the way we did this, I had these guys each send me 5 of their strategies. Wasn't ranked in any kind of order, just 5 strategies that they liked, and we'll kind of go through them one at a time. And Brian's in the chat here already shouting out some of Doc's strategies.
Hey,
like draft the AARP guys.
Brian, I resemble that remark. Jersey in the house. Brian Ford, good to see you, my friends. We're gonna get into it, Brian. Don't you worry. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it.
Absolutely. So just to kick us off right here at the top, Doc, you got the first one here. Give us your strategy and then explain how you kind of implement that into your leagues.
Yeah. So, one of the things that, I talk about injuries and things like that. But, one of the other things that I've kind of, molded my dynasty strategy around is going for players and filling out the rest of my roster with not so much like young upside players, but more like productive veterans that can fill in for injuries and bye weeks and things like that. And you just kind of start the season and see how it goes. So the kind of postulate that I go with is the idea that advancing age in the NFL is actually a skill. It's not always a liability. So the quote that I put here was, beware the old man in a league where men die young. Like, playing in the NFL is extremely hard and extremely taxing. And players that demonstrate that they can actually do this successfully over multiple years are a much more valuable commodity than people give them credit for, and much less likely to be, valued appropriately. So in my opinion, this is something that's very underweighted in player analysis, just to be brief. I mean, I could talk about it. I could use a whole hour, expounding on it, but I won't. But that's kind of one of the main postulates that I go with.
Yeah. And this even goes beyond just fantasy sometimes too. I hear a lot of the arguments when talking about, is a player Hall of Fame or not. And like, oh, he just played a really long time. That's why he accumulated all these stats. Well, playing means that he outplayed the guys that were behind him. Like I hear the argument all the time with Frank Gore, like, oh, he just played forever, but he was good enough to play forever. And that's a skill. Like you said, that's a skill. That's something that not everybody can do. A lot of times, if you're not good enough to play, you're not getting on the field and you're not getting any fancy points. So that's a good one. I like it.
Geoff, can you go mine out of order? Because my one's very close to his.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's a good piggyback.
Yep. Go ahead and give us your second one or your first one here.
It ties in with that and the Jared Goff thing. It's focused on boring players. Like these unsexy guys, Jared Goffs, Mike Evans, back in the day, Frank Gore, who just put up good numbers, not superstars. You can't start all wide receiver ones. You can't start super flex, all QB ones. You have to have some weakness on the team, but you can buy these guys who are just good at a discount. Or Mike Evans is great, but he's done it for so long, we're not excited about it anymore. And some of these running backs who are just getting up there in age, but still produce year in, year out. But it's just got stale. Those are the people we buy. And they're not hyped. We just forget about them. And people are giving them up too cheap.
Yep.
I saw Mark Andrews go for 105 in a rookie draft. Like you have a 4 or 5 year dynasty starter at a hard to fill position for a dart throw.
Yep.
But he's boring, so we don't want it. I love getting players like that. Jared Goff is going to get thrown for 4,000 yards and 25 to 35 touchdowns, and nobody cares. Kirk Cousins, same thing. Nobody cares. But they're great buys, and you can focus on superstars, other positions by getting guys like that.
Yeah, perfect example is my team last year won a championship with Jared Goff at quarterback because he was just super solid all year long, and I had good skill players all around him. But yeah, perfect example of his
QB is the easiest position to do that.
Yep, agreed. All right, so my first one here is really timing is everything, right? So I wrote down buy the win now pieces in the off season and sell the win now pieces during the season. So what that means is the win now pieces typically are the older guys that still have value. If you're going to sell them in season because their value is then the highest it'll be. You're going to want to buy them in the offseason because that's probably when they're going to be the cheapest. Like, a perfect example of that is in a league that I was in last year. They were trying to sell me Derrick Henry in the offseason, and I wanted nothing to do with Derrick Henry last offseason. However, when December came around and I'm looking at my team like, okay, I'm a contender. I'm maybe a running back away from being into the legit conversation to win a championship. I went out and I bought Derrick Henry. Yes, it was a little more expensive to get him at that point, but the person that traded him and waited on Derrick Henry got more for it. As if he had traded him to me in the offseason. So if you're looking at selling some pieces or buying some pieces, it's all about timing and getting it at the right time and selling at the right time to get the most value. And I think some of those older pieces that some of the guys we were just talking about, selling them during the season when they're having a solid year, and they're the guys that can get the contenders over the hump. So timing is everything is kind of my point there. All right, Doc, what you got for your second one here?
So this is a good one, and it kind of piggybacks a little bit off of what you just said. And let this serve as a trigger warning for all the Dynasty bros out there. But I hear this a lot, and every time I hear it, it's like I kind of have a burst in aneurysm a little bit sometimes. So getting out a year early on a player, which I hear lots of people say, I like to get out a year early rather than a year late. Okay, cool. Well, getting out a year early on a player might actually be you getting out 3 to 4 years early and giving away a lot of production. And I especially apply this rule to players that are elite producers. And there's a great article that was written by Adam Harstad, and he talked about veteran players, and people talk about appreciating assets, depreciating assets, the age curve, and things like that. And what he did, the article's great. It's in Football Guys. Look it up. Go read it. If you're not a subscriber, it's like $6 a month. Like, you can't find $6. Like, what are you doing? We need to support each other in this industry, for crying out loud. But anyway, he talks about something called the death rate. And he talked about veteran players, not so much as they're going to depreciate. It tends that they more are binary. Like, from year to year, as they advance in age, they either are still productive players or they're not. So they die. So what I do is I take the veteran players, and like you said, Geoff, I just kind of start the season, and it's like, let's see how they do. Is this guy still productive or is he not? And I don't really worry about the age, because if you have guys that are elite producers, the opportunity cost of trading that guy early is that you give away a ton of production. And I'll give you a great example. Travis Kelce 2 years ago, I think we were on the show together, or we were doing a PLP, we were doing something, and it was like, oh, Travis Kelce's getting a little bit longer in the tooth. I want to get rid of him. And what did he do since then? You trade him for a couple of second-round picks. Tight end 1, tight end 2, won me a championship 1 year, got me to the championship game another year, and there you go. So what you end up doing potentially is you take the risk that, let's say there's a 20% chance that the player dies. That's an 80% chance that he's still productive and he could be elite. Another example I'll use real quick, your boy Christian McCaffrey, same thing. Going into season 2 years ago, his age 25 season, a couple injury-marred seasons in Carolina, which, Carolina was essentially garbage at the time, and it was get out for anything decent, right? Yeah. Well, 2022 RB2 overall, 2023 RB1 overall. Do you think the folks who listen to that want that trade back? And I know what you're going to say. All the Dynasty bros out there are going to say, Doc, those are outliers. Those are anecdotal. And that's my point. Like, the players that we're talking about are already elite. They're already outliers. They're top 5. They're top 2 at their position. So why would we assume that they wouldn't behave differently than historically other players would in the past? So I'm the guy that is willing to let those elite players die on my roster, because I don't know when it's going to be. It could be next year. It could be 5 years from now, but I don't want to give away that production to my opponent for a decreased acquisition cost on my end, and then watch him ride off into the sunset with a couple of championships.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Mike Evans will die on every roster I have.
There you go. Mike Evans. I got Mike Evans on a couple of teams myself.
I'm everywhere. I'm going to die by him.
I will say I am a guy that will say that quite often, where I'm like, get out a year early than a year late. But I do see your point. And the one thing that I kind of caveat that with is it's okay to have a player die on your roster. Like, you don't have to move them when they get to a certain age or to a certain, if they just end up not being productive anymore, you could just cut them. You don't have to trade them and get value back. So people are so adamant about, oh, he's over a certain age, I got to get rid of him, I have to get value for him. It's okay to ride him out. Keenan Allen is a guy that I'm probably going to ride out until he's no longer any good. But he's been good to me for so long that I'm just going to keep holding on to him until he can't produce.
Yeah, I want to double down on that real quick. So some Dynasty players believe that the worst thing that can happen to them is a player dying on their roster where he becomes unstartable or retires or whatever. I believe the worst thing that can happen is you sell an elite player short and give up 1, 2, or 3 or more years of elite production to your opponent at a low cost. So yeah, I can't do it.
All right, Ryan, what you got for your next one?
Real quick, I want to say that's a contender thing too, though. Like, if your team's terrible,
yeah, there's certain players. If you're looking to rebuild,
well, Doc's teams contend, Ryan.
Yeah,
we don't. I mean,
Doc doesn't believe in.
I agree. I don't like the. I don't think a rebuild should take more than a year, personally. But some people like the process, whatever. But if you're really rebuilding,
if it all goes bad during the year, absolutely. But these people that are like, they dump out of the draft and then they're rebuilding 2 or 3 or 4 years later. You're not rebuilding. You're a moribund franchise. I don't even know. You're like the late 80s Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're not rebuilding. You're a dumpster fire at that point. Yeah. Like, let's call it what it is.
I wrote an article like the 10 worst dynasty owner types, and one of them I named it Bob the Builder. The guy that's always constant rebuild. Every year it's like, oh, it's the next year's class. Let's sell these guys and get the next year's class. And he's in a constant rebuild. So that's kind of what you're talking about there. All right, Ryan, what's your next strategy?
Mine good for like startups and kind of when you're setting up the draft portion. It's as well as zagging. I feel like we say this a lot, but these runs that people go on in drafts and all the people, like, you'll get in leagues where 2 people go 0 or go 0 RB, and the next 5 do the same thing in the first round. And they're taking all the elite. You get to that tier break, and you're taking a lesser player. Do not be afraid to go the opposite of people. Actually, I suggest going the opposite in finding those holes in the draft where there's value. So if there's a value at tight end because wide receiver running back's gone on a rip, do the opposite. Don't take lower tier. And chances are, if you do start something else and go the opposite way, it's going to turn the flow of the draft and they're going to feel pressure and you're going to get that receiver on the comeback or that running back on the comeback. Do not be afraid to go the opposite. You want great players and you can build around it. Just go the opposite, especially the earlier in the year.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to take running backs in the first round of Dynasty because it's frowned upon. That could be where the value is.
Yeah.
Like, you're passing on Bijan Robinson in the late first round because you think you have to take a wide receiver because that's the rip and that's what's popular now. Don't be afraid to do it.
Yep.
Do what makes your team the best and go the opposite. Get the best players. Go the opposite.
Yep. And that I'll just jump on that piggyback with my next point because mine kind of goes along with that as well. Is don't worry about roster construction in your startup or even in your rookie drafts. Draft for value, draft best player available. You can worry about roster construction when you get closer to the season, figure some things out. But I've taken a lot of questions this recent rookie draft with people pushing up Jonathan Brooks because he's a running back. I'm like, oh, should I take him at the 104 or the 103? I'm like, no, take the receiver. You may not need the receiver, but who cares? The receiver is where the value is at the top of the draft. Do not push up a running back because you need a running back. Just get the player that's the best player available, get the best value. Worry about roster construction and set your lineups as we get closer to August and September. Roster construction right now is not something you should be worried about in Dynasty. All right, Doc, what you got for your next one?
So the next kind of postulator rule that I go by is player potential is good, but player production is gooder. Or metrics are the prince and opportunity is king. So not infrequently, whether it's in the startup or, during the season or, going into the season, I'm often going to lean towards or choose the guy I know that can play and produce and has some sort of track record, even if his ceiling is lower. Obviously, if there's a wide disparity, then that's different. But, all things being relatively close, that's how I'm gonna play it because I want those pieces. I don't want to be taking zeros early on in the season and then say, oh, well, screw it, I'm gonna blow it up and rebuild. Like, that's not how it goes. Like, there's too many variables. There's too many things in play. I want to be able to weather some storms, see if I can squeak into the playoffs, and then maybe make some trades, bulk up the roster, and then go for it. When I get to that sprint, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But often that methodology, I'll be honest, it's not exciting. Like, I'm not going to get thousands of people following me for my scintillating fantasy advice that says, like, go for the boring veteran players, but my teams often, they don't look good in a bikini, but more often than not, they win. And God damn it, I'm here to win.
Yep, agreed 100%. And opportunity is king is definitely something that we talk about a lot on my DFS show. DFS is a little bit different than regular fantasy football, but it's the same thing. Get the guy that has the opportunity, that's going to have the volume, because yes, you might have an elite talent that's if he's not getting the snaps, he's not getting the volume, and he's going to be outplayed by a guy that's going to be on the field more. We talk about it a lot with tight ends too. Tight ends that quote unquote are good blockers. People don't, I don't want him because he's going to be blocking too much. Well, blocking gets you on the field. And if you're on the field, there's a chance you can still catch a pass or a touchdown. So you have to get on the field to begin with. So yeah, opportunity is king for sure. Great point. Ryan, what you got?
I'm doing another one, like, for startups and drafting. For this, I'm kind of off the draft thing. I think with trading nowadays, moving up and moving back, it's become more popular than ever. And I think a lot of people do it just to do it. They want to move back to see they can accumulate picks. In all reality, that's great. But the goal of it is so you can still accumulate talent. So tier-based drafting is like when you have your tier of guys, if your tier is over and there's a gap, move back. If that tier is almost over and it's ahead of you, that's when you try to move up. the goal is to stay within your tier of 3 or 4 or 5 players who you think are similar and collect value. If there's a drop off in talent, don't move back. Like if you have a wide receiver 1 and you're like, oh, I want to move back to get another 3rd round pick, I'd rather get the elite player and stay stacked.
Yep.
But if there's that run of guys and there's a teardrop, that's when we're going to try to move forward to get in there. Like, be productive when you do it. Like, be smart about it. Don't just trade to trade. Trade with trying to make your roster as good as possible.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, and letting the draft come to you. Paying attention to who's drafting what and when you're going to move up and when you're going to move back, and that's 100% accurate because you can't just go
trading will kill you.
Yeah, some people go into with the mindset, I'm going to trade back. I'm going to trade back. They're just going to keep trading back. And that's their whole mindset. They don't think about where they can go up and get. They go in with a predetermined idea of what they want to do, and they end up with a million picks and not a lot of good players. So, yeah, that's a really good point to
even rookie drafts I had recently. I was like, I want to move back 2 or 3 spots because there's a player I think will fall to me. I have like a 75% chance of falling to me and collect some value. I took the chance, which might have been there, but there's still a very good chance someone's going to reach for Jonathan Brooks. So I can still get the receiver I want. And it worked out, but I did it with that intention not to drop a tier to the second from 107 to the second round to just get an extra pick in a dark throw. I did a few spots, got an extra little bit.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so my next one is really when we get into the doldrums of June and July, when the rookie drafts have all worn out and we're not quite into preseason mode yet. We haven't seen these players on the field. Sometimes we get bored and we just make trades to make trades. So my advice is sometimes the best trades are the trades that are not made. So if you're like in the June and July and they're players you're trying to get and whatever reason you can't get them, don't overbuy. Don't continue to try to trade. If the guy doesn't want to sell them, then just stay pat. There's a chance you might get him in August or September. But if you're in June or July and you're just trying to force trades, chances are you're going to overpay for a guy and regret it later on. So, like I said, some of the best trades made are the trades that are not made. I go back a lot of times and look at rejected trades and on Sleeper and see some of the guys that I could have ended up with. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, thank God that trade did not go through because it wouldn't have turned out well for me. So that's my little bit of advice there.
What are the 3 most boring fantasy players ever?
I don't know, but they're probably on my roster right now.
Ever or just right now in the NFL?
No, I'm saying we're just them giving the most boring advice.
Yeah.
And we sound like we're boring fantasy players.
Hey, listen, you want hot takes or you want to win your friggin' league, man. It's like there's plenty of people out there that have hot takes and then they delete their tweet like 2 months later because it completely blew up. These are stood the test of time. So I stand by my advice.
Yep. 100%.
Oh yeah, boring wins. I barely had first round picks in most of my rookie drafts.
There you go. That means if you don't have first round picks, that means you're winning games and you're going to the playoffs. That's the way I look at it.
Yep. All right, Doc, what you got for your next one here?
So you're telling me there's a chance. All right, so I'm going to dovetail again off of kind of what you said because there's something else that you need to consider when you're trying to make trades in May, June, and July when you're not going to have to set a roster for months. Is that any player's career is inherently risky and can be undone by injury at any time. And this happens way more than most of us want to admit. And people tend to underestimate the chances of a bad outcome just in general because it's unpleasant to think about. And I get that. I'm all about positivity, but we see catastrophic injuries in the NFL seemingly every week. And this makes all players risky commodities, running backs especially, but this is often underweighted by the players out there, and you want to mitigate that risk whenever possible. And for fantasy purposes, this also underestimates the possibility that players that are backups or in a timeshare, usually a backup running back or a third wide receiver, will have a part and maybe even a big part of the offensive opportunities for most or sometimes even all of a season due to injury. And you could look at, Ezekiel Elliott, who people have been shoveling dirt on for 3 years. He won me a championship last year because Ramondre Stevenson got injured. Oh, go figure. A running back in the NFL gets injured, right? Never happens, except it happens all the freaking time. Well, what did Zeke do? 14.3 PPR points in the last 7 weeks of the season, including 2 RB1 finishes and the RB1 overall in week 14. Thank you very much. Now, could I have predicted that at the beginning of the year? No. But what did I have to do? Did I have to acquire him? No. I just stood pat on me having him from like 3 or 4 years ago and said, well, he was an elite player. If he gets the opportunity, he could probably be pretty good for a short span. And that's exactly what he did. I also did that with Ferguson and Brandon Cooks on the Cowboys this year. I fit them into DAC stacks, each for, late 25 seconds. And I got them to bolster my lineup going into the playoffs. I won both of those semifinal weeks, and I took down the championship in one league. So people say I'm losing value. Ryan, as you said, I don't have first or second round picks, but maybe I am. But I'm not looking for value. I'm trying to win my league. So sometimes you can have your cake and eat it too, but when I can't, I'm shooting for the title. If I make it to the playoffs and out of the first round, I'm in the semis, this is my shot. So I'm okay with losing value if it helps me win.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll just roll into mine here because mine is going to kind of play into that as well. And I learned this hard lesson in my home league. Having the best portfolio doesn't always equal championships. And what I mean by that is I had rosters that were stacked. I mean, I had guys on my would be starting on other teams. I drafted really well. I built, I would trade, I would tier down. So I would get, instead of one elite player, I would have 2 really good players. And I thought that was how I would, build a championship team. And I went a couple years, getting so close, not being able to get over the hump because I had a great portfolio. I had all these great players on my bench. My weekly start sits were a nightmare because I never knew who was going to go off each week because I had such a deep roster. But over the last couple of years, I've kind of come to realize that, you got to have that elite talent, that those guys that can win you an entire week, not guys that are going to always be just consistent. But you got to have 1 or 2 just ringers that are just going to, the Justin Jefferson type, where it's just going to win you a week with a blow up. And I started going the other direction and sort of tiering my players up instead of down to build my starting lineup. In the home league that I've been, kind of referencing this whole podcast, I'm now the back-to-back champion because of that. I've tiered up my players so that I can get the better players, get those guys that are going to win you weeks. And that's kind of what I've been living my life with in fantasy now, is having the best portfolio, having the deepest roster doesn't always equal championships. You got to have those elite guys.
Yeah, I'd say
Right.
elite over depth.
Was that?
Elite over depth is huge because you can fill out depth at any time. Like getting an RB2 or wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, RB3 is so easy to do. Getting Justin Jefferson,
Not so much.
getting Jamar Chase, getting Christian McCaffrey, it ain't easy. Like you're giving away your next 3 first-round picks plus 2 players, and then you're buying. Getting those elite guys, way more important. If I overpay for an elite player with some depth, I can get depth back. I can replace Brandon Cooks. I can replace guys in that tier. I can replace any wide receiver too. I can't replace him. So if you have to overpay for a great player, do it.
Yep.
And that's why I'm going with the sell hype. And this is especially pertinent for the next, I don't know, June through the end of training camp, when you see a quarterback throw 4 slant routes in a row, they can complete it against the air, and everybody thinks he's elite now. I'm just kidding. Caleb Williams is awesome. I'm just using that as an example because it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen today. That they're hyping up 4 slant routes in a row being complete. But like, somebody makes a one-handed catch in camp, doesn't mean they're good. Doesn't mean they're going to be a superstar. But somebody's going to be dumb enough to believe it. Sell that hype. You're going to get people overpaying in camp. A rookie, a 4th-round running back who rushes for 4 carries for 60 yards in week 1 of preseason is probably not going to team. Sell him immediately. Like, if you know he's going to be 2nd or 3rd on the depth chart, sell him. You have the wide receiver 4 in Atlanta blow up in a preseason game or make some catches. Sell him. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
We can be smart about this. Sell that hype. That's when you accumulate draft picks for the next year. 2nd and 3rd round picks is selling these guys who aren't going to play, but they look real cool in shorts.
In shorts. There's one guy that really kind of epitomes that whole statement. If y'all remember Quintez Cephas, he had the preseason catch. It was a still picture of him in the one catch, and he's so high up in the air making this one-hand catch, and his fantasy value shot through the roof. And we've never heard from him since. So that was kind of my postseason or my preseason hype guy was Quintez Cephas, because everyone was talking about him and the catch that he made, and did absolutely nothing after that. So I agree. Sell the hype. Just be careful, because I sold the hype last year on a guy by the name of Puka Nacua, and I'm regretting that one. But those are very, very high outliers. There's not much that you're going to hit with a guy like Puka Nacua coming out of nowhere like he did. But I like
you
it.
didn't
Ryan.
sell him because he made like a couple spectacular catches in camp.
He was just getting the hype.
Heavy targets for a couple weeks. Huh?
Yeah. I sold him in the preseason when I was like, this guy's he's just all preseason hype, and I sold him, and I'm regretting that decision. I don't even want to say what I sold him for on the podcast, because then I might get canceled if I say it, because it was not good. Anyways, moving on, Doc. What you got for your last one here?
Yeah, so this one, again, this is going to make people uncomfortable, because, for the amount of time and effort that we put into this crazy hobby, even for the best players, fantasy football is way more luck than it is skill. But I think the real skill is putting yourself in the best position to get lucky. So some people say fantasy football is a marathon. Some people say fantasy football can be a sprint. What do you guys think?
It's definitely a marathon to me.
There's
been plenty of times where my season is quote unquote over about mid-season, and then I catch fire towards the end and have a good season. So it's a marathon.
Okay, Ryan.
I'm not a gambler, but it's like if you're playing blackjack, you can have a really good hand, but still lose if they pull 21. Like, it happens.
So since we're doing movie quotes, what if I did a Morpheus quote for you? What if I told you that I think fantasy football is a marathon and a sprint? So the regular season is like the marathon. You're just grinding it out. Guys are getting hurt. You're trying to plug holes and just get to the playoffs. And then you get to the playoffs, and the playoffs is that 3-week sprint where the hot team usually gets the title. So that's the way that I look at it. I try to look at my team objectively and say, can this team make the playoffs? And in Dynasty, it's usually a little bit easier than it is in like a redraft league where everybody's kind of starting in equal footing. In Dynasty leagues, usually there's at least 2 or 3 teams or more that may be tanking or in a house money year and not quite fully competitive yet. So that often eliminates them from, playoff contention. So, if you can get that team into the playoffs and then you take that opportunity to use that draft capital, bulk up that team, plug whatever holes you have and see, who of the veteran players and the guys that you can get, haven't died. Like Adam Harstad's article, like now the season started and you can see like what veterans have fallen off, what guys are hot, what guys are maybe not going to have long-term value, but they're in a short-term value where they are able to, they have opportunity. They're really productive. Guys like Jerick McKinnon from a couple of years ago, Zeke Elliott this year, guys that fit into stacks, guys that give your team not so much the most consistency, but the most explosivity. And then you just hope you get lucky. You hope everything goes right. And then if it does, then that's how you can be in at a 5 or a 6 seed and you can take home the title. And the bonus to that is that it really pisses off the teams that worked really hard all year and got the bye and just kind of sat back and have been chilling since week 10. And then you roll up with your squad that you traded a couple of seconds and thirds, got some veterans in there, and you beat them 212 to 168. And they're like, oh, this guy's team sucks. It's all veterans. Your team's not going to be good next year.
That sounds real specific.
Guess what? I don't give a shit because I won this year, and I'll worry about next year. And I'm probably going to do the same thing again.
See, I was saying it sounds very specific there, Doc. Did that really happen to you?
It sounds
very maybe once or twice. But the thing is, like, people really don't like it when they're like, you make it in as a 6 team, they're 6 seed or a 5 seed. They're like, oh, you don't deserve to be here. It's like, well, I'm here, and you got to contend with me. And it's not like fantasy football. There's this presumption that like if you don't have good young players on your team, that like for some reason your points don't count. Like if I have a couple of veterans that blow up for 40 points on my team in the semifinals and I beat the other team, it's not like, oh, well, your veterans, those points don't count. They count just as much as everybody else's. So, you score more than the other team, you win. It doesn't matter who's scoring the points.
Yep. Agreed.
Just got to make the playoffs, man. Just all that matters.
Get to the playoffs, and then if you get hot, you're probably going to win.
Yep.
That's the NFL.
Yeah, that's the NFL too. You're right. It's 100%. All right, I'll go next, Ryan. I'll leave you for last. This next one that I have, and Doc, you've been on a couple of the PLPs that you mentioned earlier, personal league podcasts that we do. So those that don't know, we do a service for personal league podcasts where we basically take your league, we rank them from 12 to 1. We go through and break down everybody's roster, give them strengths, weaknesses, the whole nine. And one common theme that we have through a lot of these dynasty rosters is we see teams that don't utilize all of their roster spots. They have, empty bench spots. They've got empty taxi squad spots. And this is in the offseason typically. Utilize every single one of those spots. I don't care if it's the fourth string running back on a bad team, because you never know what's going to happen. Injuries, like Doc mentioned, could happen. Guys get thrust into the starting roles. And suddenly, instead of trying to bid waiver, get the waiver guy that's the hot waiver guy, you already have him on your roster. There's no reason to leave empty bench spots or empty taxi squad spots. Pick up those rookies that nobody wants and throw them on your taxi squad. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Just if one of them pop off, you're golden for it. You don't got to worry about trying to bid fab on them. So please utilize every roster spot. And typically, running backs is the ones I want to fill with because they're the ones that are most volatile. They're the ones that get the injured. We saw this year a couple guys that were third or fourth string running backs getting a couple games here and there that were starting because of injuries. So throw a couple running backs that that are third and fourth string on your roster.
One injury away guys, those guys are gold. They go from being complete waiver wire fodder to RB2s just like that.
Yep, just like that. Absolutely. So yeah, that's one frustration that I have doing those PLPs when I see a roster that's like 5 empty bench spots. They're not using any of their taxi squad. I'm like, what are you doing? There's guys in the waiver wire you could be picking up right now and filling that roster out. So that's my last one. And Ryan, you can close us out here with your last one.
This is because of roster construction, specifically wide receivers. It's mixed. A lot of receivers. We throw around the term. I always throw around the term best ball receiver or best ball play, for extremely volatile players. But even higher end volatile players like Devonta Smith, who will get 1,000 yards, but will get you 31 week, 140 the next. People like that in week winning players, you need them on your team, but they can't be there by themselves. You have to have them. You have to have a mix of consistent week to week, high volume players that let you take chances on guys like that. You have strong running backs who get volume every week, and you draft running back heavy in the first couple rounds of your draft, and you have McCaffrey and a Bijan Robinson or a Derrick Henry who knows getting this volume and got to get you 15 to 20 points. You can take a chance on a wide receiver later and get a guy who could be a boom bust player. It's mixing that boom bust with volatility, because those boom bust guys, when we talk about that playoff run and getting hot, that's who's winning you the championships.
Yep.
You need to have those guys who can get hot, but you can't leave yourself butt naked out there.
Yeah, especially leagues that have a bunch of flex spots. Those are the perfect spots to put those volatile guys if you got flex spots. Or, a lot of times I'll get, people asking questions about sit start. And I always ask, the team you're playing, if you were to look at it and say, do I need the ceiling of this guy to beat this team? Is my team good enough to beat him without it? And a lot of times I'll say, play the ceiling guy. If you think you're overmatched, play the ceiling player and hope that he hits his ceiling and win your matchup. Because sometimes playing the safe guy, getting those 6 to 8 points might be great, but I need the 25 points or the 20 points from this guy that, that's like you mentioned, he's a best ball player, but sometimes you need those guys.
Even drafting, even when you're drafting, you're looking at 2 players and comparing them. Instead of just looking at those players side by side, look who does the opposite of what your roster does. It's mixing it the whole way through and having that good balance.
Yep. I like it.
Can I do a bonus one, kind of summarizing what you guys are talking about? Yep. So the way I look at it is during the regular season, I want floor. I want production. I want insurance. During the playoffs, I want ceiling and explosivity, because that's what's going to win. Yep. So it's I don't need to go into the regular season and beat the other guy by 50. I just want a guy who's going to go out there and not get me a 0, and I'll take my chances, let my stud players kind of do their thing, and just get me to the playoffs. Once the playoffs start, what got you, it's like, what's the title of the book? What got you here won't get you there. So it's like what got you to the playoffs isn't going to get you to the championship, most likely. Like, you're going to be playing the best teams that have survived the gauntlet and are there with you. Now you need to kick it up a notch. Now you need explosivity to beat those teams. And those floor plays probably aren't going to get it done. So if I had the option of starting a boom bust guy in the regular season, I'm going to lean away from it. But if he fits into a stack or it gives me more upside going into the playoffs, I'm probably going to lean towards that guy, because if he pops off and I get lucky, then I'm going to advance. And if he doesn't, I probably wasn't going to win anyway. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right, let's do some listener questions.
Go ahead. Ask me anything.
All right, we only got time for a couple here, but we'll do this first one here from Sean M1024 on Discord. He wants to pick a side, and he says it's non-tight end premium. It is flex PPR, but no tight end premium. First side here, Doc, is T. Higgins, Kyle Pitts, and a 2024, the 108, basically. Side B is Jalen Waddle and Dalton Kincaid. Which of those two sides do you like?
Man, I hate these, but I think I'm gonna. I've been a Kyle Pitts truther forever. So now that he's finally potentially been freed from the shackles of Arthur Smith, I've always been a T. Higgins fan too. I think he's chronically underrated. And then you throw a first round pick on top of it, I probably would go with that side. I mean, it's good either way. I don't think there's a loser out of this trade, but if you wanted me to pick a side, that would be the side that I would pick.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Higgins and Waddle are in a similar tier. Pitts and Kincaid are in a similar tier, but then you get that first round pick on that top part, so that kind of pushes it over the top for me.
Same.
All right, Ryan, I'm gonna give you this one here. So let's see. We're gonna go with he's getting this is a 12-man PPR Superflex. He's getting Jaden Reed and a 25 first. Best guess is top 6. So I guess the team's not very good. And he's giving away Devonta Smith and Tyler Lockett. And this is from Tyler Lucier on Discord.
I'm picking Devonta Smith side. I don't care. 2025 first is cool, but we've talked about this earlier. Like, you're trying to win now. And while Jaden Reed's a good wide receiver, he's replaceable. Devonta Smith is 1,100 yards every season, and it's pretty much locked. Give me that side. And Tyler Lockett's still very good. He's another one we talk about playing till he dies. Tyler Lockett's unsexy. He's gonna produce, and
and I think the key that
and they're a contender.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I left that part out. He said, should I make this deal as a heavy contender, which really pushes it towards that Devonta Smith, Tyler Lockett, because that 25 first is not getting you any points this year. It doesn't matter how good that 25 first is. They ain't getting you no points this year.
Yeah, if you're a contender, absolutely don't make this trade.
Yep.
So Jamie's been pretty active in the chat. I want to address, what he said right here. He said, why would somebody want Lockett if their team sucks? And the reason is that if your team sucks, you can take somebody like Lockett, and on the presumption that, as I've talked about a couple of times, he doesn't quote unquote die. In other words, he's still productive. That's somebody that can be really good for a team that goes into the playoffs and is looking to bulk up their roster and is going to pay you a premium. And all you have to do is just stand pat and just wait and then let them come to you. And then you're going to be able to offload him for a profit, almost certainly, provided he's healthy and he's producing when coming down the stretch and going into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And who cares about he mentioned that 2025 first being a top 6. It's still 2025. We don't know. A lot can change.
A lot can change.
You know what? If that person's buying 2 veteran wide receivers, there's a chance they may not be a top 6 anymore, and they're making moves to try to win now.
Yep. 100%. All right. Let's get to our final segment of the night.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Doc, you know how this works. Give us your hints for your Forgotten Fantasy Player.
Okay. So your first hint is this is a 4-time Pro Bowler in the NFL who, went undrafted and started his career in the CFL, where he won a Grey Cup championship. And if Kyle Senra or any other of our neighbors to the north are out there in the chat, don't help these guys.
All right, so 4-time Pro Bowler.
Went undrafted, started his career in the CFL, where he won a championship.
Nobody has a CFL. Is this Doug Flutie?
No.
Yeah, he's only CFL player I can
He's
use.
a CFL right now.
CFL does not help me at all.
All right, well, it's only the first hint. We gotta build the crescendo. We gotta
thinking of undrafted players. That does more for me than the CFL part.
Okay, cool. So he signed as a backup to a future Hall of Fame quarterback the following year in the NFL.
Oh, Kurt Warner.
No. Kurt Warner played in the CFL. He played in the Arena League, I think.
He did. The Iowa Barnstormers.
So
Wait, what was that one more time?
Say that hint.
He backed up a Hall of Famer.
He signed as a backup to a future Hall of Fame quarterback the following year in the NFL. So the year after he won the Grey Cup championship, he signed as a backup to a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL. So he transitioned to the NFL and was backup to a Hall of Famer, to a future Hall of Famer.
Trent Green.
No.
That's a good call, but I think Trent Green was the starter on that team. And then
for a very brief period of time,
yeah.
And next thing you know, Dick Vermeil is crying, and Kurt Warner comes and wins him a Super Bowl. So
yeah,
it all worked out.
All right, so let's think. Can we get an era, like a time frame?
No.
Oh man, killing me.
Art Bolger.
No. Shall we move on, gents?
Yes. Get another hint.
Okay. He won the starting job the following year, despite his team drafting 2 quarterbacks, and then set the then team record for passing yards with 4,278, as well as throwing 31 touchdowns.
Jeff Garcia.
Yes, it is Jeff Garcia.
Yes. I don't know why that did it for me, but I was like, it sounds like Jeff Garcia type numbers.
Yes. So all right, I got a couple more. That's really good. I kind of figured you were going to be the one more likely to get
Jeff
it.
should have. He's a 49ers guy.
Yeah,
and
I didn't know. Honestly, didn't know that he came
from
from the CFL. That was new to me. I didn't know that.
I mean, you know me. I like to pull the ones from the late '90s before half the audience is even born.
Yeah.
So the year after that, after he threw the team record 4,000 yards and 31 touchdowns, he became one of only 12 quarterbacks to have consecutive 30 touchdown seasons. So think about the era when he did that, which is kind of amazing that only 12 quarterbacks have done it with all the passing that's happened in the last 5 or 6 years. He's one of only 3 quarterbacks to have thrown a 99-yard touchdown pass. And then the final hint, I don't know, Ryan, we see if you would have got this one. Over the course of
that pass to T.O.?
No, that was a 3-yard pass to Garrison Hurst.
No, it was like Andre Davis when he was at Cleveland or something like that.
Oh, really?
Okay, yeah, I looked it up, but it wasn't with the 49ers, but it wasn't anybody of particular note.
Okay.
And then see if you would have got this one, Ryan. Over the course of his 13-year NFL career, he played for Coach Steve Mariucci twice, once for the 49ers and later with the Detroit Lions.
That probably gave it, yeah.
Okay. That's why I put that. I say that one for last. I was like, if these guys are really stumped, then I don't know. I kind of had a feeling you would get it, Jeff, but there you go.
That line, you stuck with me because that year, those 2 years actually, I had Garcia and I had Terrell Owens on my back-to-back championship team that year. So that stat line, and then on top of that, I think we did a fun fact type thing, another podcast that I was on, and they were mentioning how that Jeff Garcia has the record. When you think of Steve Young and Joe Montana, no one thinks of Jeff Garcia being the team's passing leader. So yeah, that's a good one.
100%. You want to go, Jeff? You want to go for extra credit?
Let's do it.
Okay, so can you name the 2 quarterbacks that got drafted the year that Jeff Garcia beat them out and won the starting job? And I'll give you a hint. Tom Brady mentioned one of them in his all the players that got drafted before, all the quarterbacks that got drafted before me thing.
I'm just gonna name quarterbacks that in that time frame, but I don't even know if Elvis Gerbach, is he one of them?
No.
Who
Was that one more time?
Elvis Gerbach, I think, was his name.
No, what was the question?
What was the question?
Who were the 2? The 49ers drafted 2 quarterbacks the year that Steve Young got concussion and he was forced to retire. So Jeff Garcia beat these 2 guys out that they drafted presumably to take the job, and he won the job and ran with it and had another amazing year. Kind of started his amazing 30 touchdown run and him being really good.
What year was it?
Geez, I don't know. What was it? 99? Yeah, 98, 99. So Ryan, what were you, 3?
No, I was born in 85.
Oh, okay. I apologize. You were 9.
99.
I'm drawing blanks on the quarterbacks. They didn't do anything in their career, right? They didn't go on.
No, as a matter of fact, I think one of them like became a sheep herder or something. I'm not even joking. Like he really he lives in the mountains or something.
Yeah, you're gonna say the names and I'm gonna know it. Elvis Grbac was the only name I had. I know Steve Bono was there, but I don't think he was even drafted by us. We got him as like a late free agent or something.
One of them was drafted kind of early. I think he went in the 3rd, and the other one they took in the 5th. So the one they took in the 5th round was Tim Rattay.
Tim Rattay,
household name Tim Rattay.
Yeah, I think I have Tim Rattay's rookie card sitting around here somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the other guy?
The other one was a Giovanni Akamazzi.
Oh, I would have never got that.
Nice Irish name. Yeah, he didn't have a very illustrious career, but he was supposed to be the presumptive starter. And if you watch the Tom Brady special, he talked about him specifically. And they interviewed Steve Mariucci, and he was just like, yeah, that was like my worst draft pick ever or something like that. It was pretty funny.
I would have. You could have given me like 10 years, and
I thought you would have known that because you would have been like, I remember that. I remember when they drafted that guy, and he amounted to exactly nothing. But
yeah,
that was my first year watching the draft. It was 99. That was the Tim Couch year, right?
I don't even know if I watched it.
I don't know, but Mark Bulger was in that year. Like it was Mark Bulger was one of the quarterbacks got drafted that year.
All right, man.
Everybody that's watching is just reveling in how old we are. Like it's
like what are these guys even talking about?
It's like
fantasy anymore. All right, Doc. I want to thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and we had you on, and we didn't even talk about injuries once, which is not usual.
Nice.
What was that?
I don't always want to be the bearer of horrible tidings. Yeah, they say, exactly. Oh, this guy's going to be out a week and a half, and I'm like, it's probably going to be more like 2 months.
Yeah.
I feel like it has to be nice though, not to talk about injuries every time.
It's not bad. It's good to talk strategy. We still wove it in there a little bit. Like I can't get away from always thinking about players getting hurt, but yeah, it was nice to have it not be all about injuries.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, let's go around the room. Give us your Twitter handle and plug anything. Plug the book one more time, Doc. We'll start with you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that are interested, you can find me in the Going for Two Discord. Scott Fishbowl season is starting up, so we're going to get a lot more traffic in there for Scott Fishbowl. So good luck to everybody. I'm abstaining from the Scott Fishbowl for the foreseeable future due to the soon birth of my daughter. But I'm in the Discord. I run the injury channel there. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in there. You can message me at TFSDoc. If you're interested in learning more about injury analysis, kind of the framework of how to do it and how to approach it and get a league up on your league mates, my book is called Injuries Suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. It's available on Amazon. It cost me $150,000 to get all the information to put it in there. It's going to cost you way less than that. There's an e-version, there's a paperback, and there's an audio version narrated by yours truly. So you can go check that out. And then, I may turn this stuff into an article that maybe some people will read, or I can put it on Twitter and they can roast me for being, for being old. But all you ageist out there, join my leagues because I will pick up those veterans on a cheap and I will beat you over the head with them. I guarantee it.
Love it. Ryan, what you got going on?
And nothing that exciting. Twitter, Fox534. Here Wednesday nights over at the Rookie Big Board Dynasty Big Board podcast on Wednesday mornings. Good
stuff. As always, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Doc mentioned the Discord already. You can find it linked in my bio. It is Scott Fishbowl season, and I'm going to drop something right now. We got 159 viewers currently. I'm going to drop something that I haven't announced yet, but I will be raffling off my first round pick in the Scott Fishbowl. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be doing a little raffle to raise some money. I'm assuming that my league mates are going to be the ones probably spending the most money to get me to pick somebody that they want me to pick. But
I'm in on that too. I'm contributing to that too for sure.
Is this a bid or is it a raffle?
It's going to be a raffle. So the more every $5 is going to get you an entry into the raffle, and then I'm going to pull a random name.
I can't wait! If I win, I'm definitely making you draft a kicker.
And then we're going to have you come on because we're going to do a live stream of our live event. So when I'm up on the clock, we're gonna have you come onto the show and make the pick live. So it'll be a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for that. I just now announced it. So
and it's a great cause.
All right. That's it, guys. Thank you once again, Doc, for coming on. Thank you, Ryan, for jumping on. Your internet cooperated for the most part tonight.
For the most part. Well, thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. For Ryan, for the Doc, I'm Geoff. We will see y'all next week.